The moment the spotlight hit the stage, my world split into two halves. The one I was living, and the one my sister was stealing. She stood there, next to a piece of furniture I had bled for, a creation born from my own two hands, and she smiled as the announcer called her name. My sister, Madison, the visionary artist. But the worst part, the part that still burns behind my eyes, was when she accepted the design award, looked out into the crowd, found my face, and mouthed the words, "Thank you." She wasn't thanking me for my support. She was thanking me for the sacrifice. She was thanking me for staying silent. In that moment, I knew I wasn't her sister anymore. I was just the ghostwriter of her life. My workshop has always been my sanctuary. It's the only place where the world makes sense. It's small, tucked away behind my modest rental house, filled with the holy scent of cedar, walnut, and tung oil. The air is always thick with sawdust that glitters like gold in the afternoon light. This is where I create, not as a hobby, but as a calling. My hands, calloused and often nicked, know the language of wood. I can feel the story in a piece of raw lumber and spend weeks, sometimes months, coaxing it out. My work is my voice, my soul made tangible. I'm Chloe, by the way. And for most of my life, I've been the quiet one, the one in the background. My sister Madison is the opposite. She's all flash, noise, and dazzling smiles. She doesn't have a workshop. She has a social media feed. Her craft isn't shaping materials. It's shaping perceptions. She's an influencer, a curator of a life that looks effortlessly perfect. She can sell anything with a well-angled photo and a caption full of inspirational buzzwords. Authenticity, passion, hustle. Words she uses often, but words I'm not sure she understands the meaning of. Our parents adore her. They see her as the star, the one destined for greatness. Her online followers are proof of her potential. My quiet dedication in the workshop? That was always just Chloe's little hobby. It was nice, quaint, but not important. Not like Madison's brand. The project that broke everything started 6 months before that awful night. I'd found a magnificent piece of reclaimed black walnut, a single slab, with a live edge so beautiful, it almost felt sacred. An idea sparked in me, a design for a bench that was more than just a place to sit. It was a piece of functional art, a meditation on stillness and strength. I called it the Serenity Bench. The joinery was complex, a series of interlocking dovetails that had to be perfect to the millimeter. I spent nights sketching, calculating angles, and days carving, sanding, and finishing. My hands ached, my back protested, but my spirit soared. This wasn't just another project. It was my masterpiece. It was the culmination of everything I had learned, everything I was. Madison would visit my workshop occasionally, not out of interest, but more like a queen surveying her territory. She'd sweep in, trailing a cloud of expensive perfume that clashed with the earthy smell of sawdust, her phone always in hand. "Wow, Chloe, that's rustic," she'd say, looking at my work with a polite but vacant expression. She'd ask vague questions about my process, not to learn, but to gather content. "So, like, you just cut it and glue it?" she once asked, while taking a selfie with my tools artfully arranged in the background. I tried to explain the complexity, passion, but her eyes would glaze over. She didn't care about the how. She only cared about the what, and how it could benefit her. The simmering resentment I'd been ignoring for years began to bubble to the surface during this period. It wasn't just one thing, but 1,000 tiny cuts. Madison had always been a magpie, drawn to shiny things she could take for herself. In high school, my prize-winning science fair project on crystal formation mysteriously appeared in her presentation with her name on it. When I confronted her, she just laughed it off. "Oh, relax. It's not like you were going to become a scientist. I needed the A." My parents intervened, not to discipline her, but to placate me. "She looks up to you, honey. Take it as a compliment," my mom had said, her voice laced with that gentle pressure to just let it go, to keep the peace. When I won a small scholarship with a deeply personal essay about our grandmother, Madison submitted a nearly identical version to another program and won too. Again, my parents told me not to make a fuss. "We're just so proud of both our girls," my dad had beamed, completely missing the point. This time felt different. Madison started talking about a new venture. She was tired of just promoting other people's products. She wanted to launch her own artisan home goods line. She had the brand, the vision, the audience. She just needed the products. "I'm thinking of getting into furniture, Chloe," she announced one afternoon, watching me apply the final coat of oil to the Serenity bench. "Something unique, you know, with a story." My heart sank. I knew that look in her eye. It was the same look she had before the science fair, before the essay. It was the look of a hunter who had just spotted her prey. "You should really enter that in the Artisan Collective Showcase," she said, her tone casual, almost an afterthought. "It's a huge deal. The winner gets a grant and a feature in Design Digest." She was framing it as advice, a sisterly tip, but it felt like she was scouting the battlefield. I was hesitant. My work was personal. Putting it out there felt like standing naked in a crowded room. But she was persistent. "You're too talented to hide in this dusty old shed, Chloe. You deserve to be recognized." It was the first time she had ever said anything like that, and a foolish, hopeful part of me wanted to believe her. A week before the showcase deadline, she came to me in a panic. Her prototypes had fallen through. The craftsman she'd hired was a total flake. It was a cascade of drama and excuses, all delivered with tears welling in her perfect eyes. "I'm going to be humiliated, Chloe. I've already told everyone I'm debuting my line at the showcase." Then came the pitch, the one I should have seen coming from a mile away. Could I just borrow the bench? Just for the showcase? I'll give you full credit, of course. I'll tell everyone it's a collaboration. It will be amazing exposure for you. I felt a cold dread creep up my spine. "No, Madison," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "This piece it's mine. It's personal." The tears became a flood. The pleading turned into guilt-tripping. "I can't believe you'd be so selfish. After everything I do to promote you. I'm your sister. Don't you want me to succeed?" My parents got involved, of course. They called me that night. My mom did the talking. "Chloe, darling, Madison is in a terrible position. It would mean so much to her. It's just for one night. Why can't you just help your sister?" My dad chimed in on the extension. Don't be difficult, Chloe. We're a family. We support each other. That word, support, felt like a threat. It meant my compliance. It meant my silence. Exhausted, beaten down by a lifetime of being told to keep the peace, I gave in. Fine, I told Madison on the phone. One night, and you make it clear it's my work. She promised. She swore on our family's name. It was a promise she never intended to keep. The night of the Artisan Collective Showcase felt surreal. The gallery was buzzing, a chic, minimalist space filled with a who's who of the city's design scene. People in expensive architectural clothing sipped champagne and made hushed, important-sounding comments. I felt out of place in my simple black dress, my hands instinctively tucking into my pockets to hide the calluses. My parents were there, beaming. They were with Madison, who was holding court near her display. And there it was, my bench, the Serenity Bench. It was sitting on a raised platform under a soft spotlight. There was a small, elegant placard next to it. I moved closer, my heart pounding, needing to see my name in print. The placard read, "The Serenity Bench. Design and execution by Madison Clare. Not in collaboration with, not with help from." Just her name. Madison Clare. As if I didn't exist. I felt the air leave my lungs. A dizzying, hollow feeling spread through my chest. I looked over at my parents. They were smiling, nodding along as Madison explained the inspiration behind the piece to a well-known design blogger. I could read her lips. She was using my words. The story I had told her about the reclaimed wood, about the feeling of peace I wanted to imbue in the design. She was stealing my soul and selling it as her own. My mom caught my eye and gave me a little wave, her expression one of pure, unadulterated pride. In Madison. She didn't see the theft. She only saw the victory. The climax of the evening was the awards ceremony. The founder of the collective, a severe-looking woman named Helene, stood at a podium. She spoke about the importance of authentic voices in modern design. And then she announced the winner of the grand prize, the New Vision Award. "This piece captivated the judges," Helene announced, her voice echoing in the suddenly silent room. "For its profound simplicity, its masterful craftsmanship, and its deep connection to the story of its materials. The New Vision Award goes to Madison Clare for the Serenity Bench." A wave of applause erupted. Madison, ever the performer, pressed a hand to her chest in faux surprise. She glided to the stage, accepted the heavy glass award, and turned to the microphone. My parents were crying, actual tears of joy. My dad had his arm around my mom, and they looked at Madison like she had just cured a disease. I'm speechless," Madison began, her voice thick with emotion. "This has been a dream of mine for so long. To bring my vision to life, to pour my heart into a piece, and have it be seen. It's everything." She went on, thanking the judges, the collective, her followers for believing in her journey. And then, she did it. She looked out across the sea of faces, found mine in the dim light, and a small, knowing smile played on her lips. She raised the award slightly, a little gesture just for me, and she mouthed the words, "Thank you." It was a confession and a dismissal, all in one. It was the cruelest moment of my life. I didn't scream. I didn't run on stage and expose her. My reaction was as quiet as I was. I just turned, pushed through the oblivious crowd, and walked out of the gallery into the cold night air. The sound of the applause faded behind me, replaced by the pounding in my own ears. I didn't go home. I went to the one place that felt safe, the one place that was truly mine. I went to my workshop. I didn't cry. The shock was too deep for tears. It was a cold, clarifying rage that settled deep in my bones. For years, I had been the foundation of my family's happiness, stable, silent, and ignored. And they had just dynamited that foundation for the sake of a pretty facade. Instead of breaking down, I began to build. But this time, I wasn't building with wood. I was building a case. I flicked on the bright, unforgiving overhead lights of the workshop. The rage inside me wasn't chaotic. It was focused. It was methodical. I went to my drafting table and pulled out the original sketches for the Serenity Bench. Dozens of pages, filled with my frantic, messy handwriting, dated automatically by the design software I used. I had documented every single step of its creation, a habit born from a need for precision. I took high-resolution photos of each sketch, the timestamps clearly visible. Next, I went to my workbench. I found the offcuts from the specific slab of black walnut I had used, pieces with the same unique grain and figuring as the finished bench. I photographed them next to a ruler for scale. I then pulled up my emails and found the invoice from the specialty lumber yard where I'd bought the slab 6 months ago. The invoice had a photo of the exact piece of wood, a unique identifier, and my name and credit card information on it. I saved it as a PDF. I scrolled through my phone's camera roll, finding the progress photos I had taken over the months. Me, covered in sawdust, carving the joints. The bench in pieces, laid out on my workshop floor. The first coat of oil being applied, my own reflection faint in the gleaming wood. Each photo was a digital breadcrumb, a time-stamped piece of evidence that told the real story. My phone started buzzing violently around midnight. It was Madison, then my mom, then my dad. A flurry of texts. "Where did you go? That was rude, Chloe. You embarrassed us." And from Madison, "Are you seriously going to be like this on my big night? Unbelievable." I ignored them all. I put my phone on silent and continued my work. I compiled everything into a single, meticulously organized folder on my laptop. Sketches, invoices, photos, even a short video I'd taken of myself explaining the complex joinery to a friend a month prior. I wrote a calm, factual, and irrefutable narrative to accompany the evidence. It wasn't emotional. It was a legal brief against my own family. As I worked, the memories I had suppressed for years came flooding back, each one another brick in the wall of proof. I remembered being 12, working for weeks on a diorama of a rainforest ecosystem for a school competition. It was intricate, detailed, with tiny clay animals and a working waterfall made from a small pump. The night before it was due, Madison, who was 10, accidentally knocked it off the table, smashing it to pieces. Her own project was a mess. My parents made me stay up all night helping her fix hers. "She's younger, Chloe. She needs your help," my dad had said. "We can't have her going to school with nothing." She ended up getting an honorable mention with a project that was 80% my work. I got a 0 for my broken diorama. I didn't get an apology. I got a lesson. My work was disposable. Her feelings were not. I remembered college. I was in a demanding architecture program, pulling all-nighters, living on coffee and stress. Madison was in a communications program at the same university, known more for its social scene than its academic rigor. She had to write a term paper on the semiotics of modern advertising. She came to me in tears, saying she was going to fail. I was swamped with my own final project, but I spent an entire weekend researching, outlining, and essentially writing the core arguments for her paper. I walked her through it, paragraph by paragraph. She got an A and a glowing comment from the professor about her incisive analysis. When I saw my parents next, my mom gushed, "We're so proud of Madison. She's just a natural at this stuff. So brilliant." They never knew I was the ghostwriter. They never asked. Each memory was a link in a chain that had been wrapped around me my entire life. The science fair, the essay, the endless help with projects, the constant expectation that I would step in, fix things, and then step back into the shadows without a word of credit. Madison wasn't just a thief. She was a system, and my parents were her willing accomplices. They weren't just blind. They were actively choosing not to see because Madison's manufactured success was easier and more glamorous to celebrate than my quiet, difficult, and solitary work. The award for the Serenity Bench wasn't a one-time betrayal. It was the culmination of a lifetime of being erased. By 4 a.m., my dossier was complete. I had a file that was cold, hard, and undeniable. I felt a strange sense of peace. The rage had burned away, leaving behind a core of absolute certainty. I knew what I had to do. This wasn't about revenge. Revenge was too hot, too messy. This was about reclamation. It was about taking back my name, my work, and my story. They had left me with no alternative. They had taught me my entire life that my voice didn't matter unless it was serving them. Now, I was finally going to use it for myself. I attached the folder to a new email. The to field was blank for now. I leaned back in my chair, the smell of sawdust, and my own quiet determination filling the air. And for the first time all night, I allowed myself to feel the exhaustion. But underneath it, for the first time in years, I also felt the first flicker of freedom. The next day, I didn't go after Madison. Attacking her directly would be playing her game, a messy, emotional, public spectacle where she could twist herself into the victim. My target was the system that enabled her. My target was the truth. My first move was to drive to my parents' house. I didn't call ahead. I walked up the familiar driveway and used my old key to let myself in. They were in the kitchen, drinking coffee and reading the local paper, which had a small photo of Madison and the bench on the society page. My mom looked up, startled. "Chloe, goodness, you scared me. We were so worried. Leaving like that, we need to talk," I said, my voice devoid of the emotion she expected. I was holding a large manila envelope. I walked past them to the dining room table, the one they used for holidays and important occasions, and I began to lay out the contents. One by one, I placed the printed copies on the polished wood. The dated sketches, the invoice for the lumber with my name on it, the time-stamped photos of the bench in progress in my workshop. I arranged them like a museum exhibit. The exhibit of a lie. My mom came over, a confused look on her face. "What is all this?" she asked. My dad followed, peering over her shoulder. They stared at the evidence, a slow dawning horror creeping into their expressions. "This," I said, my voice steady, "is my work. These are my designs. That is my bench." My mom picked up a photo of me, smiling tiredly, covered in sawdust, next to the half-finished bench. She looked from the photo to my face and back again. The denial started immediately, a weak, sputtering defense. "Chloe, what are you talking about? Madison was inspired by you, of course. She's always admired your hobby." "This isn't inspiration, Mom," I said, tapping the placard from the event, which I had grabbed before I left. It read, "Design and execution by Madison Clare. This is theft. She put her name on my work, on 6 months of my life, and you both stood there and cried with joy for her." My dad finally spoke, his voice taking on that familiar dismissive tone he used whenever I was being difficult. "Now, Chloe, let's not be dramatic. Madison is creative in her own way. She has the vision, the brand. You have the technical skill. It was a collaboration in spirit." "A collaboration?" I laughed, a short, bitter sound that made them both flinch. "Was it a collaboration when she stole my science project? Was it a collaboration when she copied my scholarship essay, word for word? Or have you forgotten about those?" Silence. They looked at each other, a flicker of guilt passing between them before the walls went back up. My mother's face hardened. "That was a long time ago. Why are you bringing that up now? You are trying to ruin the biggest moment of your sister's life. After all the work she put in." "She put in?" I interrupted, my voice finally rising. "I was the one with splinters in my hands and an aching back. I was the one who spent every night for half a year in that workshop while she was out taking pictures for her Instagram feed. You have no idea what it took to create that bench, because you never once bothered to ask. You never once came into that workshop and took a genuine interest in what I was doing. You were too busy applauding her for faking it." The confrontation wasn't loud or screaming. It was a tense, painful exchange in the quiet of their perfect suburban house. I was forcing them to look at the ugly truth they had spent a lifetime papering over, and they hated me for it. The final blow came from my father. He squared his shoulders, looking at me not as a daughter, but as a problem to be managed. "What do you want, Chloe? An apology? Fine. We're sorry you're upset, but you need to let this go. Madison has an opportunity here, a real career. Are you going to destroy your own family over a piece of furniture?" And that was it. That was the moment I knew it was hopeless. They didn't see the betrayal. They saw an inconvenience. My pain was an obstacle to Madison's success. They weren't just enablers. They were co-conspirators. They would always choose the beautiful lie over the difficult truth. They would always choose her. I calmly gathered my evidence from their table. "No," I said, looking my father dead in the eye. "I'm not going to destroy our family. You 3 already did that. You just haven't realized it yet." I turned and walked out the front door, leaving them standing in stunned silence in their sun-drenched dining room. I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt light. The burden of seeking their approval, A weight I had carried my entire life had finally been lifted. I got in my car, pulled out my laptop, and opened the email I had prepared the night before. I typed in 3 email addresses: Helene, the founder of the Artisan Collective, the design blogger who had interviewed Madison, and the editor of Design Digest magazine. I attached the folder of evidence. The subject line was simple: regarding the New Vision Award and the Serenity Bench. I wrote a short professional message. To whom it may concern, I am the true designer and builder of the Serenity Bench. Attached you will find irrefutable proof of my sole authorship. I ask only that the truth be brought to light. I took a deep breath, and I hit send. The fallout was faster and more explosive than I could have ever imagined. It was a digital firestorm. The first email I received was less than 2 hours after I hit send. It was from Helene, the founder of the Artisan Collective. Her message was brief and ice-cold. Miss Evans, we have reviewed the documentation you sent. We take matters of artistic integrity with the utmost seriousness. We will be launching a formal investigation immediately. Please do not speak to the press until we have concluded our review. The implication was clear. They knew. My evidence was undeniable. The design blogger, a woman named Aria Vance, who ran a very influential site called Urban Aesthetic, was next. She didn't email me. She called. Chloe, Aria Vance here. I just got your email and... Wow! I'm looking at your sketches and the photos from your workshop. This is... incredible. The level of detail. I interviewed your sister last night. She told me a very different story. I stayed calm, answering her questions factually, without emotion. I walked her through the process, the materials, the unique challenges of the joinery. By the end of the call, she was convinced. I'm going to have to retract my piece, she said, a sense of journalistic fury in her voice. This is a major story, Chloe. A story about authenticity and deception in the design world. Are you willing to go on the record? I hesitated for only a second. Yes, I said. I am. By the next morning, the story was live on her blog. The headline was devastating. Artisan Collective winner, accused of fraud. The stolen story of the Serenity Bench. The article was a masterpiece of controlled demolition. It laid out the evidence side by side. My original sketches next to photos of the finished bench. Madison's vague inspirational quotes from her interview contrasted with my detailed, technical explanations. Aria Vance didn't call Madison a liar outright. She didn't have to. The evidence did it for her. The post went viral within the design community. The Artisan Collective officially rescinded the award that afternoon. They released a public statement about a violation of the core principles of the showcase and misrepresentation of authorship. They didn't name Madison, but everyone knew. Her name, which had been celebrated 48 hours earlier, was now toxic. Her social media, once a curated stream of positivity, became a war zone. The comment sections on her posts were flooded with accusations. Snake emojis, calls for her to apologize, questions from her own followers who felt betrayed. She tried to fight it at first. She posted a tearful, filter-heavy video on her Instagram story. There's a terrible misunderstanding happening, she sobbed into her phone. My own sister, who has always been jealous of me, is trying to tear me down. I poured my soul into that project. It's a classic case of a hater trying to dim my light. It didn't work. My evidence was too specific, too concrete. Her vague pleas for sympathy looked pathetic next to the cold, hard facts. She had no sketches, no progress photos, no invoices. She couldn't answer basic questions about the bench's construction when other bloggers started pressing her. Her empire of influence, built on a foundation of curated lies, crumbled in a matter of days. Brands that had sponsored her dropped her. Her follower count plummeted. My family's reaction was predictable. They circled the wagons around Madison. My phone blew up with furious texts and voicemails. My mother's message was a choked, tearful accusation. "How could you do this to her? You've ruined her. She's a mess. Is this what you wanted, Chloe? To see your own sister destroyed?" My father's was cold and clipped. "You have made your position clear. Do not contact us. You have caused enough damage to this family." They didn't once acknowledge the truth. In their eyes, I was the villain. I hadn't exposed a lie. I had committed an act of betrayal. I was the one who had broken the family, not the one who had been broken by it. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. I was effectively disowned. But a strange thing happened amidst the wreckage of my family life. My professional life began to ignite. My quiet workshop, once my secret sanctuary, was now the subject of intense interest. Other design blogs picked up the story. I received emails from gallery owners, furniture companies, and private collectors. They weren't interested in the drama. They were interested in the work. They saw the sketches, they read about the craftsmanship, and they wanted to see more. A prestigious gallery in the city offered me a solo exhibition. A high-end furniture brand wanted to discuss licensing some of my designs. Design Digest, the magazine that was supposed to feature Madison, ran a feature on me instead. The title was simple: The Quiet Hand. Meet Chloe Evans, the true artist behind the Serenity Bench. The ending was open-ended and uncertain. I had lost my family, perhaps forever. The chasm between us felt too wide to ever be bridged. But as I stood in my workshop, the scent of cedar in the air, fielding calls from people who respected my talent and saw my true worth, I didn't feel broken. I felt like I had finally been born. The life Madison had tried to steal was now mine, more fully and brightly than I had ever dared to imagine. The future was a blank slate of wood, waiting for me to shape it into something true. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid. The aftermath taught me a lesson that was both painful and liberating. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to amputate the parts of your life that are poisoning you, even if those parts are your family. For years, I believed that loyalty meant enduring disrespect in silence. I thought that keeping the peace, even at the cost of my own identity, was a virtue. I was wrong. True loyalty has to start with yourself. Your voice, your work, your soul. These are not negotiable commodities to be traded for someone else's approval. They are the very essence of who you are. Protecting them isn't selfish. It's an act of survival. I learned that you can't force people to see the truth, especially when they are deeply invested in a lie. My parents weren't evil people. They were weak. They were seduced by the easy, shiny narrative of success Madison presented. It was more comfortable for them to believe in her fiction than to confront the reality of my quiet, difficult work and their own complicity in my erasure. My attempts to show them the truth were perceived not as a plea for justice, but as an attack on their entire worldview. And they chose to defend the lie because it was the foundation of the family they thought they had. The most profound lesson, however, was about the nature of my own strength. I always thought my strength was in my endurance, my ability to absorb pain and keep going. I was proud of my resilience. But the showcase, the award, the mouthed thank you, it all taught me that true strength isn't passive. It's not about how much you can take. It's about what you refuse to take any longer. It's the quiet, firm act of drawing a line. It's the methodical collection of evidence in a silent workshop at 3 a.m. It's the courage to hit send on an email that you know will change your life forever. It's choosing the terrifying uncertainty of truth over the suffocating comfort of a familiar lie. I didn't find my voice by screaming. I found it by calmly presenting the facts and letting them speak for themselves. My relationship with my work has also changed. Before, my workshop was a refuge, a place to hide from a world that didn't see me. Now it's a platform. My creations aren't just personal expressions anymore. They are statements of my existence. Every piece I build is a testament to the fact that I am here. I am a creator, and my name is my own. I didn't set out for revenge, and I don't celebrate Madison's downfall. Her public humiliation brings me no joy. I only ever wanted credit for what was mine. The consequences were a result of her choices, not my malice. I feel a strange, distant sadness for her, and for my parents. They are trapped in the ruins of the lie they built, while I am free, standing in the clear, open space of the truth. Peace, I've learned, isn't the absence of conflict. It's the alignment of your life with your own integrity. I know the road ahead won't be easy. The ache of a lost family is a phantom limb. You know it's gone, but you still feel it throb when the weather changes. There will be lonely holidays and birthdays that pass without a call. But the loneliness of authenticity is infinitely better than the crushing isolation of being invisible in a room full of people who are supposed to love you. I am building a new family now, one made of friends who respect me, colleagues who value my talent, and clients who see the soul in my work. It's a slower, more deliberate process, like fine woodworking, but it's strong, and it's real. It's mine. This whole experience has been a crucible, a trial by fire that burned away everything that wasn't real. And what's left is me. Just Chloe. Not the quiet sister. Not the family ghostwriter. Not the secret helper. Just a woman who loves the smell of sawdust in the morning and knows how to build beautiful things with her own 2 hands. And that, I finally realized, is more than enough. Has anyone else ever felt like their contributions were being erased by a family member or a friend? How did you handle it? I'd genuinely love to hear your stories in the comments below, because I think a lot of us have been there, in one way or another. I'll be reading them all. And if this story resonated with you, giving it a like and subscribing to the channel would mean the world to me. It really does help stories like this get seen. Thank you so much for listening.